Chapter 1. Christina hated the short drive from the small town of Hidden Creek to the older home on the hill where she had grown up. It was a drive she had taken many times in her 25 years, but one that still haunted her. The roads were slick from the new rainfall, and since it was outside of the town limits, there were no streetlights to guide the way. She passed by a dozen homes, all spaced out with multiple acres in between. Neighbors that weren't really neighbors, just people whose land bordered each other's. She had known all too well that keeping people at bay had been a priority for her parents. Her heart sank at the thought of attending their funeral tomorrow afternoon, even as other darker thoughts about them crept into her mind. When she approached the sharp bend in the road where her father had apparently lost control of his truck a few days ago, she slowed. She saw the large gash in the trees and felt a shiver run up her spine. It was a normal reaction to seeing a place where people had died unexpectedly. It was something most people overlooked, but Christina knew better. Punching the gas pedal, she continued on the road until she finally turned into the long dirt lane that led to the 2-story historical mansion her family had called home since the bricks had been laid by slaves in the early 1800s. It was too dark to see the house from here, but she stopped at the entrance anyway. Even in the darkness, she could feel the eeriness of the place. Moss hung in long strings like spiderwebs from the thick branches of the tall oaks that lined the driveway. Memories flooded back in her mind and caused her to shiver once more. Her body ached in places where her father's belt had connected or where her mother's hand had slapped at her. Her heart hurt at the emotional scars they had inflicted. All the names, all the horrible things they had said about her, to her. Even as a child, she had known what they were saying was wrong. She wasn't a devil child. Shaking off the bad mood, she rolled her hybrid car slowly down the drive. When the house finally did come into view of her headlights, she braced for another onslaught of shivers. But this time, none came. "Interesting," she murmured to herself as she continued all the way to the end of the bumpy lane and parked behind her mother's old sedan. Turning off her car, she sat in the darkness and listened to the silence, letting her feelings wash over her. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. She didn't feel anything. None of the hurt or fear or anger she had expected. It was probably due to her weariness from the day's travel. It had been a long drive from the mountains of Colorado to the southeast. She had taken her time getting there. After all, what could she do that her grandmother hadn't already taken care of? Sighing, she thought about her grandmother. The woman was approaching 80. She was the only one in her family to ever show her kindness, though she had turned a deaf ear to her pleas to move in with her. Her grandmother had probably assumed that Christina was just a normal adolescent child who hated her parents. She wished her grandmother would have listened to her more closely. Getting out of the car, she opened the back door and pulled out one of her many bags. She learned to travel light a few years back, so she could fit everything she owned into 4 large bags and a small overnight bag. She only needed the one bag for the night, so she left the other bags to bring inside in the daylight tomorrow. After all, it wasn't as if she was going anywhere anytime soon. She held her breath as she took the first step onto the wide wood porch, waiting for the feelings and emotions to flood in. Once more, nothing happened. Taking another step, she reached the top stair and turned to look down towards the swing. She had spent countless hours as a child hiding out on that very spot, hoping, dreaming, talking to whoever would listen to her plight.